if you want to raise awareness of the brain, the latest neuroscience, these 10 questions get the job done.
We're here.
Episode number 8.
We broke it. I told you last week that 7 was the most, I guess, the average
All right.
of podcasts.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you threatened to leave, but
That's
here we
right.
are.
Well, number 8. Well, how's your week been?
Oh, yeah, very good. We're in the podcast studio as usual. But
I see you've done a fabulous upgrade here.
It's mirrored, isn't it?
Yeah.
We put the table that we're on the side where the sofas are.
Yeah.
And then we've put up these very professional lights because we're about to start video recording as well.
Fabulous lighting. My age, lighting is everything.
Look, for anyone, I think, particularly young women. I recall it being, again, in China, and wedding photos industry boomed in the late 90s and early 2000s. And the amount of women who were just 2 nostrils and eyes because they blew out the white light as much as possible to bring out her beauty.
Oh, right. That's great.
Inverted commas.
Yes, the magic of IT editing.
There wasn't much, and this was well before AI and Adobe hadn't really launched a lot of products, so it was really up to the photographer to bring out the light. Yes. And if they couldn't, they just white light just gets rid of any imperfection.
Well, look, this week we're going to be talking about the brain, as always, and the brain is always solving a problem. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about CVS to BVS. We've moved from the sort of theory in the first 5 podcasts now into the application, and we're giving out some software for the brain that listeners can actually use if they're at work, if they're in sports, if they're at home, parenting, running a company, being employed in a company, playing at the footy club, anything at all. If you're using your brain, and we all are, so these tools are valuable. Then we did the GBB, which helps you to escape from your CVS, your current view of the situation, by looking deliberately at the good points, the bad points, and then the points that aren't good or bad but are even better, maybe using X10 thinking. And then we gave an app for that as well, which you can see in the resources for this podcast. So now we're going to move a little bit more into neuroscience, going to dig a little bit deeper and give more of the context. We've done some of this in the theory part, but we're going to not only do some of the theory now, but then we're going to supply a tool of 10 questions for 10 questions which completely switch from the way we traditionally look at things with our pronouns, I, me, you, and us, and so on, to now the way neuroscientists look at it. It's about the brain. So it's not what I think or you think, it's what my brain thinks. And that'll be the switch. And we'll give you 10 actual questions that any coach can use, whether it's a parental coach or a family coach or in a sports environment or a business environment or a life coach or anything at all. It's if you want to raise awareness of the brain, the latest neuroscience, these 10 questions get the job done.
Great.
Okay, so the brain is always solving a problem. Let me give you an example. A man loses his temper at a colleague in a business meeting. A woman postpones an important decision for the 3rd consecutive month. A teenager takes a reckless risk. An investor panics during a market correction. Or a voter becomes furious at a political opponent. The usual response is criticism. What's their problem? What school did they go to? What did they have? But why did they do that? But the neuroscientist asks a different question. What problem was the brain trying to solve? This is not the same as asking whether the behaviour was wise, because it might have been foolish or could have been destructive, may even produce consequences that last for years. The point is simpler and more unsettling than that. It's brains rarely produce behaviour at random. They are attempting to achieve something. They're trying to solve a problem. Maybe they're worried about safety or status or belonging or trying to achieve certainty or relief or control or all sorts of things. These are all, of course, governed by various neurotransmitters in the brain, leading to emotions and so on. The difficulty is that the problem being solved is often invisible to the person performing the behaviour. Consider the angry executive. We tend to assume that the outburst was caused by the meeting. Yet a neuroscientist might begin by asking what hormonal mixture was circulating through the bloodstream that morning. Elevated cortisol, reduced sleep, testosterone, metabolic fatigue. A brain does not enter a meeting as a neutral observer. It already arrives carrying its chemistry. Then the question deepens. What neurochemical cascade was triggered in the milliseconds before the explosion? Which sensory cue activated an ancient alarm system? Was it a facial expression, a tone of voice, a perceived challenge? And why was that alarm system so sensitive at that time? The answer may lie months earlier. Structural changes within the amygdala may have altered how threats were detected. Neural pathways strengthened through repetition may have reduced the threshold for reaction. And then travel back further, of course, what happened during adolescence when the frontal cortex was still learning how to govern impulse and emotion? Which synapses were strengthened at that time and which were pruned? Which lessons became permanent? And then back to childhood and so on, all the way back, as we've said before, to genetics, culture and everything else. So a lot going on in the brain before the guy angrily responds in a meeting, more than just what happened in the meeting.
It's got me thinking when actors say, yeah, but what's the background of this character?
Yes.
And they go, well, let me use the Michael Hewitt Gleeson version.
Yeah, and some actors, I can't just think of one off the cuff, are famous for staying in character. In character, they say, don't they?
Sure.
For their whole, not just while the camera's rolling, but for the whole
Jim Carrey,
duration.
I think, is
Jim Carrey,
well known for that, yeah.
So it is important, and our brain, and this is all about the brain, not them as Jim Carrey, but what is their brain doing, or what do they need it to be doing to really express that particular character.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there to dig into. Here are the 10 questions that we're going to give you in this podcast, and then we can chat about them. And I'll just go through them first. This is, for coaches or any kind of coach, a mentor or an uncle, a family member in a team, sporting environment, business, religion, anything at all where humans and human brains are involved. So whenever an athlete or team member does something surprising or clever or courageous or careless, inspiring or even upsetting, you can ask any of these 10 questions. I'll go through them straight away and then we can unpack them. Yep. What problem was their brain trying to solve? What feelings might have been driving their brain? Were they tired, hungry, stressed or full of energy? What happened earlier that day that might have affected their thinking? What was their brain paying attention to? What memories or learned habits might their brain have been using? Were they trying to belong, win approval, or protect themselves? What reward or fear might have shaped their choice? And if they had paused for 10 seconds, what might they have done differently? Last one, what could help their brain make a better decision next time? So if you use these 10 questions, it'd be different times, not one at a time, different times, but say 10 times, you would have them in your brain, and this would give you a real advantage over people who don't really have much neuroscience. So that's what they're for today. Well, pick one you like and we'll unpack it.
Well, just as a background, I used to play as a teenager Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, right, yes.
Role-playing games, the true role-playing games, which is without the computer, rolling dice, and you had a character. And very much and you talked about the history and, growing up and the way my synapses connected and neurons grew was very much based on these kinds of questions because I wasn't me. I was an elf. that had a very high dexterity but a very low constitution. And so decisions were made based on that knowledge of myself, but myself was like you're talking about your brain being a third party.
Right.
I was talking about my elf in the same
yes,
voice.
Yes.
So when you said things like, what problem was their brain trying to solve, for me it's very easy to understand that out-of-body type of question.
Yes, yeah, because it was an elf problem at that time in a different context and so on.
Yeah.
And isn't it useful, as you obviously had, to have those skills in order to be able to play that game?
Yeah.
And if you have those skills in life, which is essentially a game, what more advantage do you have than if you are unable to escape from your CVS and
absolutely
kind of trapped? Let's look at that first one. Number one, what problem was their brain trying to solve? The kind of things, and we've got them, in the poster that you'll see with this podcasts, we've unpacked it a bit, but maybe it was trying to stay safe, maybe fit in or win or avoid trouble, or trying to control or get certainty or comfort or curiosity, maybe approval.
Yep.
Or avoid embarrassment in the context of a game. You don't want to be the loser in a sense.
Sure.
So there's lots of things in each of these questions that are drawn, that neuroscience is drawing on to be able to just raise our awareness rather than just say, don't like him, don't like her, she's an idiot, and that sort of thing.
Well, many of these examples, stay safe, fit in, and so on, avoid trouble. There's psychometric tests as well that I use a lot in my business of training and development over the last 25 years. One that I'm a big fan of is Belbin team roles.
All right.
It looks at 9 ways that people behave in a team. So it's not an all-encompassing MTBI or a DISC analysis.
Yes.
It is simply saying that in a team, this is how you'll behave. Very similar to what you've just described.
Drawing attention to the behaviour.
In, winning, avoiding trouble. And there was, in a previous organisation that I consulted, the organisation key staff were what's called shapers, and shapers are very, I would say, antagonistic.
Right.
They push their opinions around. And, like a Steve Jobs from Apple type of scenario.
So in that context, what kind of problem would a shaper's brain perhaps be trying to solve?
Well, they were trying to get their opinion across.
Right.
And when you've got 3 of them.
But the brain, what would be their brain be trying to do, do you think? The person is sort of getting their opinion across, fine.
Sure.
But if we focus on the brain, what could their brain be trying to do in that context?
Yeah, I think it's get a positive feeling of winning, or
so it wants to win.
It wants to win, like my opinion's the best.
Yes, that sort of thing. It wants control, maybe.
Control, yep.
It may be avoid embarrassment, so blah, blah, blah.
And I recall I was out of the office, but I was calling in through a Zoom call. I had to turn off. I had to get out of that meeting because there was 5 of them in the meeting in another city, and they were just arguing with each other, and I couldn't get a word in. So I just turned off the connection and went away and disappeared. But
if I take off on that one, I can't resist, because that's terrific. That's a real life situation.
Yeah.
I may have told the story, you know it, but when I first had the very first meeting in New York in 1980 to start the School of Thinking, or what I thought would be the School of Thinking, I put an ad in the New York Times for teachers. And I had hired a hotel room near Penn Station, and 100 teachers showed up to the free meeting about what if we put thinking on the school curriculum as a school subject.
Right.
And not long into the meeting, a fight broke out amongst the teachers. Literally half, they weren't physically touching, but they were standing up and doing what your group were doing, arguing at each other. I'd completely lost control of the meeting. And half of them were outraged at the suggestion that they weren't already doing everything, that was possible to teach kids to think. And the other half were saying, this is what we've been waiting for years. Yeah. So, and I'd only just got the materials from De Bono about a week before. So there was obviously a very tactless meeting so I knew it was no good to argue. So I did what you did. Yeah. I just shut down the meeting and said, look, clearly people are not interested. I'll start another meeting in 5 minutes. And if anyone is interested, come along to that meeting. And I walked out of the room really not expecting it, thinking that was the end of it. But 50 of them showed up to the next meeting.
There we go.
But leaving is actually sometimes a good strategy.
I think so. Anyone who's married will attest to that, yeah.
I think we need now to move on to question number 2. What feelings might have been driving their brain? I mean, let's say with my teacher's example, what feelings might have been driving some of their brains?
Well, pride, probably. It's like, you can't say that about me. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Sometimes the suggestion that we do something carries with it the hidden suggestion that because you're not already doing it, rather than you're already doing this so well, let's do it 10 times better.
Yeah.
But it depends how the brain is seeing it and
the
background.
Techniques like the feedback sandwich, giving someone negative language but putting it in the bread of positivity.
Yes.
And in fact, GBB does a bit of that.
Yes, it does.
It puts the good and the better are the slices of bread.
So if you're like very much in favour of something, by the time you've done a GBB, you've seen the other side as well, and vice versa. So that is how it works. Yep. When we asked the question number 2 here on the list, what feelings might have been driving their brain. Again, we can unpack that. Maybe they were angry. They've had a lot of adrenaline for whatever reason marinating their brain, or they're afraid or determined or ashamed or joyful or sad or anticipating, surprised, trusting, disgusted. All of the potential human emotions could have been dominating their brain, and then that's why their brain behaves in a certain way and produces a particular behaviour.
Yeah.
So when we're doing this, we're not just noticing the behaviour, we're trying to say, we don't know for sure, but we're speculating on what could the brain be doing. Again, to raise our awareness of the brain. Do you want to have a crack at number three?
Number 3. Were they tired, hungry, stressed, or full of energy? I think you're asking me this because you know that from Sunday till Tuesday I fast.
Right.
And that is just water.
Yes.
Nothing else. So
no gin in it or anything?
No. I might take a supplement like a mineral supplement or something. Yep. Lick some salt occasionally, but just keep hydrated. I know that I can, similar to what I described about Dungeons and Dragons, I kind of see myself from the outside. I see my brain.
Yes.
And I know that my brain reacts in a certain way on the Monday, different than on the Tuesday, I will add. And I still haven't eaten on Tuesday. On the Monday, by about 4 o'clock, I can feel myself getting a little bit more frustrated, or I'll jump to conclusions a little bit faster.
And you notice this.
I notice. Yep.
So now this is a brilliant example of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We also call this metacognition, thinking about thinking. So your brain's not just doing it,
no,
but because you've learnt this now, you're able to notice yourself doing it.
That's right.
Which does then open up the possibility of change as well.
And I warn people.
Yes.
That's why we don't record on a Monday.
Right. Well, anyway, you can make adjustments in your life or behaviour accordingly.
Absolutely. And to that effect, I generally stay away. I work later on Mondays.
Right.
Mostly because Monday, my wife and I take turns to cook. Right. She cooks on Mondays and Tuesdays. She knows that on Mondays I'm not eating anyway, so it makes sense. And I stay away from the good smells because I don't want those smells to influence me. No,
understood. So again, that's a behavioural choice you make as well. And what about decision making? Is it a time when you say to yourself, this is a good time to make big decisions or not? I don't know. I'm asking you.
Definitely not on a Monday.
Okay.
Interestingly, on Tuesday, the brain, talking about the brain specifically, goes into ketosis.
Right.
So it's not using carbohydrates to generate ATP, the energy, is it adipose triphosphate or whatever the energy block is.
Right.
It is it's
in the brain. That'd be dopamine triggering that as well.
Yeah. That's right. So the cells themselves are using ATP, which is the burning block of cells, and it changes from converting. It's kind of like cooking with gas or cooking with electricity.
Yes.
It's gone from cooking with carbohydrates to cooking with ketones, which are essentially fats.
Yes.
On the Tuesday, I'm a lot more alert. I don't have those hunger pangs, and I do drink coffee, and I find that the combination of that stimulant being the caffeine and the lack of lethargy coming from carbohydrates. Right. A lot of people say they've got a carb. They're tired after pasta.
Carb hangover or something like that. Yeah. You
don't get it on Tuesdays, so I actually make a little bit more effort to make decisions on a Tuesday, or at least analyse things more conscientiously.
And again, that's a deliberate behavioural choice, sort of a BVS, as you understand and think about your CVS, not just have it. Right.
That's right.
Fantastic. Let's do another one. I'll do number 4. What happened earlier that day that might have affected their thinking when you notice someone's behaviour, whether it's positive or negative, whatever? Well, maybe they had bad news that day that you don't know about. Maybe they were involved in a conflict which raised, got their amygdala going and raised their, increased their adrenaline. Maybe they had a big win.
Yeah.
Success.
Yep.
We know in sales sometimes a very good time for a salesperson to make another presentation is after they've just had a successful presentation. So you can roll off that. Maybe the opposite, rejection. They've had some kind of... Also in selling, salespeople feel rejection.
Yeah.
Which used to be they thought they got from the customer, but they actually get it from their own sales manager when he says, "Did you get the sale?"
Did you get the sale?
And they didn't. So that doesn't increase their calls. That actually lowers their call rate and their rejection. So, if you don't make calls, then you can't make any sales. So, disappointment, poor sleep, surprise, stress, travel, or even just a change in routine.
Yeah.
a member of my family recently, younger member, one of the parents got a job in London, fantastic, big job, very exciting for the family. So the parents and the son moved to London.
Right.
That's a big change in routine from the boy who's gone from his friends and, his school and everything here.
Right.
He's adapted now. That was 6 months ago, so it's fine. But it had an effect, and as it would, so any change in routine, whether you've changed it or the government have put a detour on a road on the way to work and you've got to go another way now, and so on. So and we may not be aware of these when we sit in a meeting with someone or when we ourselves are making a decision about something, such as, an investment decision or whatever, may have forgotten or not even be aware of all the things that happened to us in the last 24 hours.
That's right.
Therefore, what neurotransmitters are flourishing in their brain, and therefore what behaviours are solved. Again, the brain is always solving a problem, and this effort is about trying to understand what problem the brain might have been trying to solve. Not always the behaviour is good or wise, as I said before. It could be crazy, but it's in the context. That's what the brain thought was necessary according to the problem that it was trying to solve.
Yes, right.
Which can be quite different to what appears on the surface and in the cultural context.
Yep. No, agree. At number 5?
5, yes.
I'll have a crack at number 5. What was their brain paying attention to? So attention to other teammates, opponents, threats, rewards, status, pressure, distractions.
Scoreboard.
Yeah.
In a team environment.
Particularly in sales, they're doing better than me. This is quite related to the Hard Knocks Comedy School day 2 on Monday. They're here, they've learnt some stand-up comedy techniques, they've written their own jokes, but by day 2, they're starting to look around the room and they're starting to compare themselves with other fellow students. And these students are aged anywhere between sort of 18 to 77, so abroad, and a lot of them are unknown to one another. So they're not best mates, they're not related. And they're saying, in their head, unconsciously, possibly not even aware of this, they're starting to compare. They're creating their own scoreboard. So I cut that thinking off on the Monday night, and I say, tomorrow morning on Tuesday, there is a likelihood that you will wake up and feel as if you're not as good as other people in the room, that she's writing better jokes than you, or he's a better performer than you. That's totally normal.
Yes.
Because, and the reason I know that is we've been doing this for 10 years and about 900 people have done the course. And on the Tuesdays, I would often get a phone call or an email, a metaphorical call for help on the edge of a cliff or edge of a building. I don't want to do it anymore. I can't take it anymore. That kind of metaphor. And I have to metaphorically get them to step away from the edge and come back and turn up on the Tuesday. And for the rest of the course, it's a 5-day course. It's fine. It's fine. But they do get that. They're paying attention to others.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great thing, obviously, to recognise it, because you say you have been doing it for 10 years. So that's the advantage of having a mentor. Yeah. And then when I got called up for national service, which was just a raffle. Yeah. So that's what makes that whole exercise interesting, because it was just a sort of random 20-year-old males. And then a raffle. Yep. And got selected to go to officer training on which we thought, this is good. We left Puckapunyal, we got on a bus, flew to New South Wales. Bus picked us up, come through to the officer school and looked for beautiful gates and manicured lawns, and we're all sitting there, this will be the way to do it. We'll be in the officers' mess drinking port. I'll have a batman, he'll be shining my shoes. Yeah. And it's far more appropriate to we get off the bus and then there's screaming and shouting, and you may have seen the movie. But in the first lecture that night in the mess, in the combined classes, the Colonel Geddes, who was perhaps one of the greatest educators I've ever met, said, what we have is a 30-day pipeline. Oh. Because tomorrow every one of you will want to leave. But what I'm going to ask you to do now is to make a decision whether you'll enter the 30-day pipeline or not. If you give your word and say you will, that means you will continue for 30 days and then you can leave if you wish. But during the 30 days, you won't question, you'll just do what you can to survive and to flourish, but you'll never say, I'm going to leave. But at this moment, you don't have to enter the pipeline. So those who will enter the pipeline, raise a hand. Well, of course, Why do you think we all raised our hand? What was our brain doing? Well, not wanting to be embarrassed, trying to conform, also trying to meet the challenge, perhaps.
Sure.
So we all obviously entered the pipeline. So true enough, the next day we all wanted to leave. It was a nightmare. But then by the time 30 days come, you could do it. Yep. You understood it. The benefits had started to happen. You really felt good, and then people continued on through the.
And I would imagine that even if you left, inverted commas, you went back to a non-officer. You were still in the Vietnam War.
Yeah, you still got 2 years ahead of you.
Right.
But now you're private.
Right. So now you're cannon fodder versus the guy that's...
Well, it doesn't quite work that way, but yes, that's what you probably thought that.
Yeah.
But what I'd liked as a piece of pedagogy was the same as yours, predicting something and then having a method, the pipeline. Like we use it now and still in the School of Thinking if we're doing leadership training, the 30-day pipeline. And then you go in one end and you don't argue until you come out the other end.
Right.
And then by then, of course, things have changed. Your brain has learnt all the things you've been taught by then, and it's far more competent and able to cope with things and doesn't worry. But the shock value of the training, and that's what happened to your guys. Got to stand. Nothing more frightening than standing up in front of a group, and then you got to make them laugh as well.
That's all right. That's right. We had, I may have mentioned this to you, we had 2 professional skydivers. They do the tandem skydive. They're jumping 5, 6, 7 times a day.
Ooh.
And in fact, one of the guys had just said that he'd done 5 jumps that day, had walked in day 1, and he was visibly shaking. And one of the other students, who's a public speaker and a keynote speaker, was almost mocking him or possibly mocking the situation where someone who is risking their life using the force of gravity was afraid of simply standing up a foot off the ground.
An interesting way, but I think this is true, but it's certainly, you would have heard this, it's certainly spread around, that the fears, the top human fears, and the fear of death is number 4.
Yeah.
But number 1 is fear of speaking in public.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're trained and then you're accomplished. But just for anyone getting up and if the brain floods itself with, the amygdala with adrenaline through fear, what problem is the brain trying to solve when it gets up first time to speak in public? It's terrified. What problem would it be trying to solve?
Well, it's that fight or flight, isn't it? It's it's not. I don't think as cavemen we gave many keynote speeches.
Exactly.
So I don't think we have developed a part of the brain that says no. An audience of 5, 10, 100 people looking at us in the same direction is a positive. In many cases, it would be
a threat.
It would be an army. It would be animals.
A tribe. Also, the fear of embarrassment because humans, all monkeys, are highly status or hierarchical, concerned about their status. And it's a great way to lose status in front of the whole tribe is to stand up and...
That's right.
So, lots of reasons going a long way back as well, as you've just pointed out, for why fear of speaking in public is a big one.
That's right.
But you have a way of changing that, don't you?
We do. Well, very simply for the audience, we try to hijack the brain by forcing body language to impact the way that the brain is thinking. So when brain says fight or flight, nervous, it typically says you need to protect your body.
Yes.
You're about to get attacked, so put your hands in front of your chest. And we are upright apes, right? We're not on all fours anymore. And the stomach and the heart and the liver, these are all exposed.
Our underbelly, yes.
Yeah, it's all exposed.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we put our elbows over our lower stomach and we grab our microphone and we hold it with 2 hands to make ourselves as small as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, and we just say, look, just for this fun, like a thought experiment,
yes.
You don't have to do this in the future, but just for now.
Right.
So they feel, if it's just for now, that's fine. Now just take the microphone and hold it with one arm, but with the other arm, sort of gesticulate with an open palm to the audience. Make yourself a little bit bigger.
Right.
And turn your body so that we can see your chest, your stomach, your whole torso. And over 30 seconds to a minute, this physical behavior starts to tell the unconscious brain that, you can't be nervous because you're demonstrating physical appearance of someone who's confident.
Right, yes.
And so it reverses that cycle of fight or flight and it says, well, hang on, no, I'm the boss here. I'm the one who knocks and turns that around and we start to see people shifting their behaviour. And then after that flywheel gets going,
Yes.
now they're confident, and then their body language
And have experience
continues.
and repetition and some. There's a lot more involved than just standing up and telling jokes, isn't it, in what you're describing there? There's a lot of neuroscience, there's a lot of behavioural science and of course practice and repetition, which is the most powerful magic in the human brain.
Yeah, don't get me started about people who say, "Oh, I can make my friends laugh around a barbecue."
Yes.
It's a little bit different when you're standing in front of 100 strangers.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so look, we needn't go through all these questions now. I think we've done enough. Again, the poster will be up on the website. But for listeners, you're listening to this because it's Train.Brain.Daily. We've been through, if you haven't heard the other podcasts and you've got time, listen to them because it does build. We do training in the theory in the first half, and now we're doing tools you can actually use. So this 10-question detective questions, when you're trying to ask what problem was the brain trying to solve, and the variations of these 10 questions here. If you get involved with those, try using just maybe one a day or something in the circumstance, and you can get very good at them. And it gives you a whole different way of looking at your own behaviour and your own thinking and your own brain as well as other people's, rather than just at the very superficial sort of medieval level of, what's wrong with them and, how do we punish them or how do we soothe them and so on. People still have to be responsible for their behaviour. It's not about that, but it's about trying to have a better understanding, a better explanation as to why others behave the way they do. And again, the good question is, what problem is the brain trying to solve? Because it's always trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
But maybe not the one we think it is, and the solution it chooses may not be a good one, but it's the solution that it chooses for all of the reasons we've been discussing, going all the way back to its genetic history.
Yeah, great. So it's kind of putting a CVS umbrella over someone else's behaviour.
Yes.
That is their current view of the situation. Why?
And you can do a GBB to try to understand that. What are the good points of their behaviour? And as you use these tools, you'll get quite good at them. Yeah. And then you can use them any way you like. These tools, apps, algorithms, and software for the brain.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. So this has been episode 8 of Train.Brain.Daily.
Fantastic.
Thank you. We'll see you in a week.
See you next Wednesday.